Hey there, and welcome to Still Reads Books, where today we're doing a book review on some old pulp classics. Today we're reviewing Volume 1, The End of the Story by Clark Ashton Smith. So this one, I was reading a little bit of it, I was listening to a little bit of it because I got all the Audible books of these, and I just love these short stories. Clark Ashton Smith, one of the big three at Weird Tales, along with H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard. You can't get better than this guy. His science fiction's awesome. His horror's awesome. His fantasy's awesome. You just don't get better than that. And you know what? End of the story, or at the end of the story, the title story of this volume of the anthology is just fantastic. There's a couple other good ones in here. And even though this was his earlier writings, always from the beginning, you get the most poetic prose from Clark Ashton Smith. He's not talked about enough on BookTube. This guy is amazing, or was amazing. But as usual, doesn't get a lot of love anymore. He has the same kind of negative connotation with the time period that he grew up in. So there's a little bit of casual racism in here, which isn't acceptable nowadays. I get that, but the merit of the writing stands out, bar none. His line by line writing, in my opinion, is better than H.P. Lovecraft. It's better than Robert E. Howard. His plots may not stand up to them in that way, but his prose writing is just beautifully poetic, and which makes sense because primarily he was a poet. He's not known for that now. He's known for his short stories and short fiction, but the guy started as a poet, and he realized that there wasn't a lot of money in that, so that's why he switched over to weird fiction. But I mean, the guy can friggin' write like nobody's business. So this is volume 1 in the collected fantasies. Obviously, this will be a longer running project. I don't think I'm going to whip through them as fast as I usually do. I think I'm going to read a collection in between some other books. And usually I'm reading like a paperback book, I'm listening to a book, and then I'm reading a short story collection or listening, whichever one that is. Just when I have a couple minutes, I'll read or listen to a short story. So the short story collections from Clark Ashton Smith is going to be an ongoing project that I'm going to do, and reviewing all 5 volumes of it. We'll probably move on to some Robert E. Howard after that. But yeah, Clark Ashton Smith, the end of the story is just phenomenal. We were introduced to Averoigne in his fictional town in France, where we see throughout a lot of his stories. We're introduced to some of the mythos elements, not a whole bunch, but some. And then, you could just see where this is going to go. And I mean, this is just a fantastic collection. I'll just read you the back real quick because I think there's a pretty good sense of what Clark Ashton Smith was about. Clark Ashton Smith, considered one of the greatest contributors to the seminal pulp magazines such as Weird Fiction, helped define and shape weird fiction in the early 20th century, alongside contemporaries H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard. Drawing upon his background in poetry to convey an unparalleled richness of imagination and expression in his stories of the bizarre and fantastical. The collected fantasy series, authorized by the author's estate and endorsed by Arkham House, presents all of Smith's fiction chronologically. Stories in this series are accompanied by detailed background notes from editors Scott Connor and Ron Hilger, who, in preparation for this collection, meticulously compare original manuscripts, various typescripts, published editions, and Smith's own notes and letters. Their efforts have resulted in one of the most definitive and complete collections of the author's work available to date. The End of the Story is the first of 5 volumes collecting all of Clark Ashton Smith's tales of fantasy, horror, and science fiction. It includes all of his stories from The Abominations of Yondo, 1925, to A Voyage of Sanomo, 1930, as well as an introduction by Ramsey Campbell. Um, so yeah, that would this is the most definitive collection that you can get from Clark Ashton Smith, and it's beautifully done. The covers are amazing. See who does the cover. Cover artwork by Jason Van Hollander. So yeah, that guy's amazing. Um, and then just a little bit about Clark Ashton Smith from the back of the book as well. Clark Ashton Smith was a self-educated poet and author, best remembered for his short stories of fantasy, horror, and the supernatural. Published in genre pulp magazines such as Wonder Stories and Weird Tales in the late 1920s and 1930s. Smith died in 1961 in California. And even after he was done with his run of weird fiction from 1926 to 1935 at Weird Tales and his weird fiction period, he went into visual media. So he went into like helping movies and stuff. So I mean, his career was long and storied. He was the longest surviving of those big three, and surprisingly, he's like the least well known out of those three, which is crazy to me because like Clark Ashton Smith can write, man. And it's just nuts that like he fell by the wayside. Because like, yeah, his stories, I found him second. So I came in contact with Robert E. Howard first because I do love Conan. And Call and Solomon Kane and those characters from Robert E. Howard, but after that, I was like, I need to know more. And I had heard reference to both H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith, but I found this collection first on Audible. And I read the volume one of this collection, and I was like, how can you not buy the rest of the 4 volumes? Because these stories are just fucking phenomenal. So that's where my journey with Clark Ashton Smith kind of originated from, and I am so looking forward to the reread of all this collection just because, I try to do a reread of Clark Ashton Smith like once every other year, just because his stories are just so fantastic. I mean, reading the short story collections, like the first time I read all 5 volumes back to back, and you could kind of see the similarities because, I mean, it was the pulp era, so it was more formulaic in style. As opposed to like how short stories are now, especially like magazine short stories. They're not as pulpy as they used to be, and not as formulaic. They're a little bit more experimental now. But it's hard not to like a collection like this, especially when the author has done so many um, just fantastic works of fiction that you can't ignore the skill of this guy. So anyway, that is the end of the story, the Collected Fantasies of Clark Ashton Smith, Volume 1. So we'll be going through all 5 volumes at some point this year. Hopefully we'll finish it by the end of the year. I'm not sure. I don't generally read a lot of short fiction. I tend to palate cleanse with other short books, but this time we're going to do short story collections and try to fit in one of them in between the bigger reads. So stay tuned for that. And if you like the videos on Clark Ashton Smith, and if you want more of a deep dive on his life and career, let me know in the comments below. I am planning on doing a whole bunch of author deep dives soon, particularly Clark Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard, and H.P. Lovecraft to start off with, and then moving on to other authors that I like and read. So definitely Don DeLillo, definitely Dale Brown, as I've been harping on for the past couple days, and just other people that I think need to be known. So a quick reading update just to go with this, and I have started Ferryman by Justin Cronin. I'm liking it so far. I'm only about 40, 50 pages in, but it definitely seems like it's something up my alley. It's very different from The Passage in some sense because it's not a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. It's more of a dystopian novel. So I'm super interested on that. And like I said, I'm enjoying it so far. So I'm looking forward to getting through that more today and this weekend because it's the weekend, guys. So yeah, enjoy your weekend and like and subscribe because we need your help.